Игра не закончилась. Мы продолжаем.
Что это?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Типа просто за голосом, что ли, тебе?
Не. Значит, ну, мы же, получается, вот сейчас что мы делали? Шли тупо за голосом.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed, but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Первую открытую дверь, а мы не пойдем, мы пойдем сюда.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't 5 years ago.
Тут нужна карточка. Нам нужна карточка.
Ну, карточку мы не найдем, видимо.
Почему?
А здесь, по сути, что-то брать нельзя, если только нажимать.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking you.
Ты втираешь мне какую-то дичь.
Ты что там, бог или что? Блядь, сам говоришь, доверяться незнакомцу.
Слишком жестко.
Your chance to redeem yourself.
Пожалуйста,
To
искупление.
put
Какое
your
искупление,
work
блядь?
aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Может, это кто? Жена, что ли?
Работа.
А, работа.
Нахуй мне работа такая. Он же сам сказал, что он создал эту саную... Блядь, я ёбну сюда?
Ну, входи, да.
Ой, бля.
Ой, стена. Так, стоп.
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this. To reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone.
Кому довериться-то? Возьми телефон, дура.
Дура?
Да я уже не знаю. Чё, блядь? Как, он нахуй выдернуть, что ли? Я не знаю, что мне с этим сделать. Помогите. На, нажми.
Да подожди, ну-ка так. Не, мне кажется, просто подойти, типа. Так, нет? А,
О,
вот.
просто нажать надо.
Да. Ну-ка. Так, у нас...
Прикол, мы в начало сейчас вернемся.
427. А, это квартира уже.
Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Блять.
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
Он просто унижает.
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley. Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
Я не хочу, подожди, давай мы не нажмем другую кнопку. Ага. Ну нет, не хочу нажимать эту кнопку.
Вообще нельзя, то есть придется.
But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him.
Нажмите Б.
Чтобы посмотреть телек. Да.
and so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to two open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold.
Ну или он настолько отчаялся, что создал себе друга.
As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it The Stanley Parable.
За детям сказку, блять. Я не хочу ничего рассказывать.
К
Дай
сожалению,
мне
выбора нету.
Это прям наша жизнь.
It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time.
Блять, а у нас
Скажи, что любите ее.
Подожди, а у нас был выбор не идти в эту комнату? Наверное, если мы решили идти против всего, нужно было идти против всего.
How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets. The more he forgets which life is the real one.
Философия, блин.
And I'm trying to tell him this. That in this world he can never be anything but an observer. That as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
Ничего.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself?
Я, чтобы не задавать вопросов.
I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this
Может быть, если мы пойдем за голосом.
And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button.
Мне кажется, выбора-то особого нет. Ну вот.
Все?
Да.
Да ладно. Не, подожди.
Не, ну просто сейчас опять окажемся в офисе и все. Собственно, еще, наверное. Ну да.
Ага.
Подожди, а если мы пойдем типа за голосом, это будет считаться, что мы пошли сами за собой
Мы, по сути,
и найдем себя, я не знаю.
Мы, по сути, можем пойти за голосом, но в каких-то моментах просто где-то вот отводить.
Отводить, да, а потом вот опять возвращаться.
Не, по сути,
сюда?
можем дойти, кстати. До какого-то.
Будет очень иронично, если мы в итоге будем следовать за голосом, а потом опять окажемся же здесь. Скорее всего, в этом и суть игры и заключается, что мы все равно вернемся в
All of
конечную
his
точку.
co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Понятно. Так.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ну,
When
допустим.
Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Переговор. Ну, как бы, да.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's
А если мы
office.
пойдем вниз?
Hoping coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Блядь!
Опять красный, это заколебало.
Я!
А, нет, сюда.
Давайте спрячемся, я что-то вижу. Мы ничего не можем взять.
Да, даже поблизости можно.
Блядь.
Лампочка красная. О,
But
машина.
Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for
Да
that.
не.
And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that it had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming! He yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. He thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd, and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself? Believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too, surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Так. Попробуй.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
Опа.
Блять, психодел грёбаный.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Да ладно, че издеваетесь, что ли?
Ну что, может, пойдем лучше за голосом? А то, по всей видимости, мы сейчас перепробуем все варианты смертельных концовок.
Ну, по сути, мы-то и шли за голосом.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Но мы
What
повернули
could it
не
mean?
там, где он просил.
Stanley decided to
Ну,
go
можно
to the
зайти,
meeting
подожди,
room.
escape
Perhaps he had
Да.
simply
И
missed
пойти
a
наконец-таки в
memo.
escape.
Да, погнали.
Я думаю, что туда можно будет.
Может, мы хотя бы не помрем?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ага. Право-лево не путаем.
А, да, точно.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
2-4, там что-то было, не помню уже номер.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's
Ну то
desk.
после этой
What could
игры
its
твоя карьера
purpose
не будет для
be?
тебя смыслом всей
In
твоей жизни.
fact, this keypad guarded the terrible
Если ты не хочешь
secret
закончить
that lay
как Стэнли.
buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret pin number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't, yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Да, спускайся на прекрасный. В какой-то уже наконец-таки раз. Да. Веселая карьера и, в принципе, жизнь у Стэнли.
Я уже не знаю, сколько там запись идет.
Да уже нормально там идет, в принципе. Сейчас можно будет в escape пойти.
Stanley walked straight ahead
Блядь,
through the large
мне
door
кажется,
that
что там
read
будет то же
Mind
самое. Нам
Control
просто скажут, что мы
Facility.
говно по жизни, и
Although this
все.
passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Но нам пофиг, ладно.
Да. Мы не
The
верим.
door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Вот на мозги
At
влияет.
this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Ого. Да ладно, типа в ад? Ничего.
Мы вернемся в начало.
Если-
Нет, нет, не говори так. О, ебать, привет.
Опа. Так, стоп, ну-ка, голову вверх там.
Твою дивизию. Так, надо
As the machine
съёбывать.
whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his
Ой.
demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this
ладно,
world
как
is.
биомусор.
Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a
Вообще
blind
никак
man.
не правда.
And so he resigned
никуда.
and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Ну пока, чё.
Остановитесь!
А,
Да ладно. стоп.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Опа. Ну-ка, ну подожди, там коробки нам не туда. Нам обратно, значит.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Что это?
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the
Ну,
same.
логично.
Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Ну да. Вывесный планктон.
Ого.
А, это типа конец?
Да, ну, авторы. Да. Вот он, конец этой игры. Да, вот все двери, проходы.
Конец был с самого начала.
Да, офис. 1, 2, 3. Офигеть. Ну подожди, а там автор, там влево можно было пойти.
Да, я знаю. Это звук кнопок. Это как музей.
Музей такой, да. 433.
Служебная комната.
Ага. Как красиво, кстати, прям очень
Да.
музей прям такой.
Больше на рай похоже.
Вообще, да. Для Стэнли прям.
Поле битвы. На ранней стадии разработки мы делали концовку, в которой Стэнли сражался с пришельцами. Игра обретала разум и начинала сражаться с рассказчиком. Но мы довольно быстро поняли, что эта концовка слишком форсовая.
Форсовая, короче.
Форсовая и выбивается из общей атмосферы игры. К тому же некоторые посчитали, что мы издеваемся над любителями шутеров, а мы этого не хотим.
Ага.
Что такое шутеры?
Ну, стреляет, короче, CSGO.
Письма к рассказчику. А, мы можем тут что-нибудь написать?
Не.
Ну, по факту мы просто можем здесь ходить.
427.
А у нас 400 какой был?
Да, 427 как раз таки у нас был. Офис, так скажем.
Огромная вариация жизней
Да, кабинетов.
Стэнли, да.
И Стэнли тоже. Блин, да.
Ну, тут скорее концовок жизни Стэнли,
Ну
потому
да.
что это не жизнь.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
Попробуй выключить. Нет, да, поближе.
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen.
Да твою мать!
Listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now. And it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
А, ну все?
Все, по сути, минус Стэнли. Ну, по сути, если сейчас начинается все заново, значит, все, по сути. Или, не понимаю просто.
Сейчас начнется все заново.
Ну, как и писали, потому что в этой игре нет начала
Все,
и нет конца.
все, ну да.
Значит, по сути, ну да. По сути, мы прошли эту игру.
Много раз.
Много раз, короче, посмотрели много концовок. Я считаю, что неплохо. Хорошо получилось. Тебе как, понравилась игра?
Ну, с учетом того, что это первая игра, в которую я поиграла, то да, неплохой опыт. Но мне все же интересно, что нас ждало бы, если бы мы пошли за голосом. Вот.
Ну, по сути, мы же так и сделали.
Да ну нет же, мы не четко же за ним шли.
Ну, мы все равно что-то за ним шли.
Нет.
Мы выполняли всё,
А,
что
ну
он
блин,
хотел.
ну какую-то часть,
Изначально.
да. Ну в начале, потом мы...
А потом мы уже просто голос. Если вы будете так ходить за голос, то одна и та же концовка будет.
Ну да. Концовка, начало.
Ну, по сути, игрушка прикольная, которая не имеет ни конца, и просто ни конца. Ни финала,
Да,
ничего
да,
не
да,
имеет,
да.
как бы просто тупо сначала.
Ломает мозги.
Вообще. Катастрофически. Ну, в общем, всем большое спасибо за просмотр. Ставьте лайки, подписывайтесь на канал. С вами был Максим Листик и...
Вероника.
Да, всем удачи.
Всем пока.
Всем пока.